Hi, I'm Charlie Feemster. I'm with the IT department. I'm going to be showing you some tips to help you work through printer issues. These are two printers that we have in the schools. These are the new printers that are going into the hall printers, and this is one of the older printers. These are also used as a hall printer too. I'll show you some tips to troubleshoot these a little bit differently. First, if you have a printer issue, first thing you do is check your tablet and make sure that the printer you're trying to print to, your hall printer, is set as your default printer, or you can use the drop down from the print to make sure that you're printing to the right one. If that is set correctly, to be able to determine where the problem actually is, you want to check and make sure, because it is a hall printer, make sure that other teacher beside you that's possibly print to the same printer is able to print to it. Then that way you'll know whether it's localized to your tablet or whether there's an issue with the hall printer itself. If it is, if there's more than one teacher having issues printing to the hall printer, there's a couple of things you can do to check the printer in the print room itself. First thing you want to do, very basic, is to make sure you have power on. Another thing is to make sure that your Ethernet cable, which plugs into the back, you want to make sure that it's plugged in well, and you'll also have status lights that will be flashing. In addition to that, you want to look at the display on the front of your printer. These new ones will have a display that'll show the IP address of the printer, and it'll also show a status of the printer. It'll show you if you have it'll tell you if you have a paper jam, if your cartridge is depleted and needs to be changed, and or if you have a different type of error on here. That's a couple of things you want to check at first on this. On this type of printer, it does not have a display, but it does have status lights on the top, and it'll tell you whether the same thing. If you have a diffuser error, if your cartridge is out, if you have a paper jam, that kind of issue there. Okay, you'll notice on the new printer that it has an IP address on the front of the printer there. We install the printers with the IP address. So if you have an issue with this printer and it is not installed, or you need to reinstall, you'll install using the IP address that's displayed here on the printer. On the old one, if you need to install it, you would hold down the green button on the top, hold it down for a couple of seconds, and it will print out a configuration page that will give you the IP address. And it'll give you the IP address right there, and you use that the same way to install as if you used the IP from here. Now, let me show you how to install using the IP address. If you see that you have an issue with the printer and it cannot be resolved, another thing you want to check is you can double click the printer. If you open up your printers, your device and printers, double click on the printer, it will open up your print queue. And it's possible that you have a job hung in the print queue. You can highlight that job and delete that job. You can also delete any other jobs that are hanging out there in the print queue. Once your print queue is completely clear, try to print again. If you're still unable to print, the best thing to do is uninstall, reinstall the printer. And you can do that very easily going to your devices and printers on your tablet. You can do that by going to Control Panel, Devices and Printers, or you can go to your tile screen and your search and type in Devices and Printers that way. It will both take you to device and printer screen. I've already got it up here. Now, if I wanted to install this printer, I'll use the IP address that's displayed here on the display. You hit the Add Printer tab. And it's not going to show up, it's not a networked printer, so it's not going to show up there. So what you want to do is hit Printer is not displayed. You want to add a printer using the TCP IP address or host name. Hit Next. Then you're going to put the IP address that's displayed on your printer. which is 10.9.8.14. Okay? Once you do that, say query the printer, just leave that checked, hit next. It's going to search for that printer. It's going to search for the driver for it. Okay, now it found the printer and it gave, the print name is actually the model name of the printer. A good practice to do is go on and delete this model name out and put the name of the printer based on where it's at, so you'll know exactly which printer you're printing to. If it's, say if it's on the 400 hall, put your school identification, CHS 400 hall, printer number 1. Or if you have multiple printers in your print room, you want to make sure you have their numbers. So you'll have printer number 1, printer number 2, just so when you go to print, you'll know exactly which printer you're actually printing to. I'm not going to change the name here just for demonstration, but let's go on and hit next there. Now, this is also important. It's going to have checked to share the printer, and you want to uncheck that, and you want to make sure that do not share the printer is checked. Once that's done, hit next, and you can print a test page if you want, just to verify, and there it is. You can see it's highlighted, it has a green check on it, which means it's the default printer for this tablet. Anytime you go to print, you hit the print function, this is the printer that it's going to send to. And again, to do that, you hold down the button on the printer, hold it down for a couple of seconds, and it'll print this configuration page out. Another good thing to do, because you have to print this page out to get the IP, once you do that, get a label maker or something and put the IP address on the printer itself. So you're not always having to go back and checking the IP by printing the configuration page. It prints 3 pages each time it does that, so you're wasting paper. Easiest way to do it is go on and label your printers clearly by the name, by the IP address, and it just makes troubleshooting for you a whole lot easier. I hope these tips have been helpful on troubleshooting printers, and happy printing.